Let's bring in psychologist Dr. Sanam Hafeez for more on what parents can do to be sure their kids aren't getting too much screen time. Dr. Hafeez, thanks for being here. You know, what happens to children's brains when they look at screens, or particularly when they look at screens too much?
So, this is true for all of us, but children's brains are still developing. They're still somewhat plastic. And so what happens is when you're engaged in too much screen time, your brain somewhat goes into autopilot, where it stops problem solving for itself. It stops critical thinking because the screen is doing it for you. And also understand that every time let's say a child's on Instagram or they're on Snapchat and they get a ping or they get, a notification, it basically activates the reward centers in the brain. And this is somewhat, if you want to make a comparison, something like gambling, where there is a constant activation of the pleasure and reward centers in the brain that keeps you going. And now, because of the pandemic, this has also become, screen time is almost inextractable from socialization, because this is how kids are connecting. And there's no buffer as in, just playing on the playground or going to go get, ice cream with your friends. So this is all they have. And so that social aspect of it is really sort of drawing kids in. But what it's doing, it's sort of making children unable to connect maybe on a more, human, normal social level. But it's also taking away from their ability to think for themselves, abstract thinking, concrete thinking, making eye contact. And we have tons and tons of data that shows a correlation, not necessarily a cause and effect, but a correlation in excessive screen time and damage to the brain. There's a part of the brain that begins to atrophy and with excessive gaming. So screen time is not that far off.
And what about virtual learning? A lot of parents worked really hard to minimize screen time before the pandemic, but now their kids have to be on a screen all day for school.
Yeah, this is the problem, right? Like, we're on a screen for work, our kids are on the screen for learning, and then when we get off these screens, there's an engagement, there's a draw to come back to those screens for socialization, for entertainment, and it seems like there just doesn't seem to be a break. And so even with virtual learning, if your child has any break, especially with the younger children, I'm a mom of 2 and 5-year-old boys, so I can tell you the minute they're off of class, even though I would love to do some homework with them, I say, nope, go back. I have a backyard. I'm very fortunate. I go in the backyard, just get some sun, run around, expend some of that energy. And so if you have the time and you can go for a brisk walk with your children, around the block, or even just let them do some jumping jacks or do some, pleasure reading, it's a break from the screen. You just need to break up that screen time. It's the chronicity, it's the nonstop screen time that is really bad for the brain.
And how do you know when screen time is becoming a real problem? Are there red flags we can look out for?
Absolutely. When your child doesn't want to go to sleep or would rather be on a screen than go outside and play with a friend, or, if you're able to do, I've had parents who've complained, I've tried to set up socially distant play dates and my child would rather stay home and play Roblox or a video game. And that's a concern. If they're trying to, not eat or rush through their meals, if they can't sit down and watch a movie with you on family night because they'd rather be in their room gaming, those are really valid concerns. And of course, it affects the way children eat. It affects the way they sleep. It's, children's brains on the screen, on video games are a real pandemic.
And limiting screen time, of course, is easier said than done, especially right now. So any tips for how parents can go about doing this?
Yeah, so one of the things that I'm a big fan of are not just setting limits, but making that screen time contingent upon something. So if you say, all right, complete your homework, complete this task, complete this chore, complete your meal, and you can get 15 to 20 minutes of playtime on your screen, whatever it is that they like to do. So if you're already giving them, let's say, an hour, or even 2 hours, which I think is a bit excessive, but even if you're giving them that much, you can say, all right, well, I'm going to dole this out in small increments. And you're making this dependent on them completing other tasks, which I think you have a much better chance of, A, getting them to complete whatever they have to complete, B, they learn how to earn these rewards instead of just having them, and C, you're breaking them up into smaller segments so they're not on the screen for a really long stretch of time.
And even adults, we're on our devices more during the pandemic than we would be normally. Many people are working remotely. We're also socializing a lot more virtually. So how can we set an example for our kids without cutting ourselves off from the world?
children watch us and they take most of their cues from us. So it's hard to say to a child, well, you can't be on the screen when they're watching you on your screen. So one of the things that you can do is really try to discipline and set some examples. So for instance, no screens, no phones at dinner time or meal time. I think that's a big one. Or just saying, okay, about, for half an hour a day in the evening, let's say after you're done with school, after you're done with work, we're just going to have a screen-free time where you can literally put all your phones in a drawer and set them to do not disturb and just do something fun. Even if that means just, eating a snack together, even if it means playing a board game together, even if it means just sitting down and talking about your day. And also explain to your children that even though I know we are guilty of also, going on social media and getting, sort of roped into the news cycle, which is really detrimental, and that's a whole other segment. But we can also explain to them, we use our phones to work, and we work so we can, pay for your screens and your Wi-Fi. So I think also explaining that to your children is a big part of, it's just sort of getting them to understand how important it is for them to, limit those screens and just explain that concept. It's not as for children to grasp as it is for some of us adults.
All right, Dr. Sanam Hafeez, thank you.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.